500,000 years later, aliens find Earth's sleeping war fleet. Reaches its breathtaking zenith as Captain Aaron Sol risks her mind in a neural interface with the ancient Guardian AI. With humanity's fate hanging in the balance, her sacrifice of privacy becomes a bridge between civilizations, convincing the watchful AI that, after 500,000 years, the time for humanity's awakening has finally arrived. The quantum engines of the Astra Voyager hummed softly as Captain Aaron Sol gazed through the observation deck's transparent alloy. Stars scattered like luminous dust across the void, forming patterns her people had charted for millennia. Yet here, in this sector designated empty by ancient cartographers, something about the cosmos felt different, untouched, as if waiting. "Captain, you requested the latest nebula scans?" Chief Scientist Mira Thal approached, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. Like most Saren, her slender frame and opalescent skin carried the elegant marks of 1,000 generations, evolved in low gravity. "Thank you, Mira." Aaron accepted the crystalline data tablet. "It's beautiful, isn't it? All these centuries of exploration, and still the universe finds ways to surprise us." Mira nodded, her expression serene yet curious, the ideal temperament for a Saren scientist. "The luminous gases in this region contain molecular structures I've never encountered. Given time, I believe they could reveal insights into stellar formation that would—" "Captain Sol," Combat Officer Jekvar's voice cut through their conversation as he strode onto the deck. His uniform bore the subtle insignia of the Confederation's peacekeeping corps, symbolic weapons crossed with branches of reconciliation. "We're approaching the coordinates you specified. Defensive shields are at standby." Aaron gave him a patient smile. "Jek, we haven't encountered hostile forces in 7 generations. Is the full shield array truly necessary?" "Protocol exists for reasons beyond immediate threat." "Captain." Jek's posture remained rigid, his dark eyes alert. Of all her crew, he carried the most visible traits of their distant militant past, a past the Saren Confederation had evolved beyond through centuries of philosophical refinement and technological harmony. "Laura, ship status?" Aaron addressed the ship's artificial intelligence. A gentle blue light pulsed from the command console before materializing into a translucent, humanoid form. Laura's preferred interface when conversing with the crew. "All systems optimal, Captain. We are proceeding at 1/4 light speed through the unnamed system. Sensor arrays are collecting data on the surrounding nebula, as requested by Chief Scientist Thal." "Thank you, Laura." Aaron turned back to her officers. "We'll continue our survey for another 3 cycles, then proceed to the next sector. The Confederation Council is particularly interested in this region's unusual emptiness. Historical records suggest it once contained a developed star system." "Perhaps the nebula consumed it," Mira suggested. "Gas formations of this density could theoretically obscure even a planetary body from long-range sensors." "Or perhaps whoever inhabited it destroyed themselves," Jek added quietly. "Not every species achieves balance before reaching technological maturity." The unspoken weight of his words settled over them. The Saren Historical Archives contained numerous records of civilizations that had flared brilliantly across the cosmos only to vanish, either through self-annihilation or mysterious exodus. It was why the Confederation valued its cultural evolution toward tranquility so deeply. "We are seekers, not judges," Aaron reminded them, repeating the first principle of Saren exploration. "Whatever we find here, or do not find, adds to our understanding." As the 3 officers stood contemplating the void beyond, none suspected that in mere hours, their understanding of history, civilization, and their own place in the cosmos would be fundamentally transformed. "Captain Sol to the bridge immediately." Laura's voice carried unusual urgency through the ship's communication system. Aaron had been reviewing stellar cartography in her quarters when the summons came. Setting aside her historical texts, she moved swiftly through the curved corridors of the Astra Voyager, nodding to crew members who stepped aside respectfully. The ship housed 300 Saran explorers, scientists, and cultural specialists, all committed to the Confederation's mission of knowledge gathering and peaceful contact. When the bridge doors parted, Aaron immediately sensed the tension. Jack stood rigid at the tactical station, while Mira bent over a scanner, her normally serene features tight with concentration. "Report," Aaron said, taking her command position. Laura's holographic form flickered beside the main view screen. "Captain, while scanning the 7th orbital path of the system's gas giant, we detected an anomaly." "Define anomaly." The view screen shifted to display a massive ringed planet, swirling storms of amber and gold circling its equator. But it was what orbited the planet that caused Aaron's breath to catch. "Magnify Sector 4, Jack instructed. The image zoomed to reveal geometric forms, thousands of them, arranged in perfect, concentric orbits around the gas giant. "Ships," Jack said simply. "Thousands of vessels in formation." Aaron stepped closer to the display. "Laura, composition analysis?" The objects appear to be constructed primarily of titanium alloy composites with various metal compounds consistent with advanced spacecraft design. Their arrangement defies random distribution. Current count: 4,732 distinct vessels, ranging from 50 meters to 15 kilometers in length. Mira looked up from her scanner. "Captain, the formations have maintained perfect orbital stability despite gravitational fluctuations. This suggests active stabilization systems." "Are they alive?" Aaron asked. "Power signatures are minimal but present," Laura replied. "They appear to be in a dormant state rather than abandoned." Jack's hand hovered over the tactical array. "Captain, I recommend we maintain distance and raise shields to full capacity. A fleet of this size represents significant offensive capability." Aaron considered the recommendation, her gaze fixed on the screen. After a moment, she shook her head. "No. If whoever built these ships intended harm, they would have deployed long before we entered the system. Laura, establish a communication link. Attempting contact on all standard frequencies." Laura confirmed. After several moments, the AI added, "No response, Captain." "Mira, what do your scans tell us about the age of these vessels?" The scientist consulted her readings. "Preliminary analysis suggests extensive temporal exposure. The outer hulls show radiation patterns consistent with hundreds of thousands of years of stellar wind exposure. However," she paused, brow furrowed, "their structural integrity remains at approximately 92% efficiency. This suggests either extraordinarily advanced materials or ongoing maintenance." "A ghost fleet," one of the junior officers whispered. Aaron made her decision. "Jack, prepare a probe for close-range scanning. Mira, compile all available historical records that might reference a civilization capable of building vessels of this scale. Laura, continue attempts at communication while monitoring for any change in the fleet's energy signatures." "Captain," Jack protested, "Confederation protocol clearly states that unidentified technological artifacts of military scale should be reported to Central Command before direct engagement." "Noted, combat officer," Aaron replied. "But we're 3 light-years from the nearest relay. By the time we receive a response, a unique opportunity for discovery could be lost." She softened her tone. "Raise shields to standard precautionary levels. We will approach with caution." As the Astra Voyager altered course toward the mysterious fleet, Aaron felt a familiar sensation, the mixture of wonder and apprehension that had drawn her to exploration. In her 20 cycles as captain, she had encountered ancient ruins, dying stars, and once, the crystalline archives of a species that had voluntarily transcended physical form. But nothing like this. A silent armada suspended in time, waiting. For what or whom? The probe glided silently through the vacuum. Its sensors extended like invisible tendrils as it approached the nearest of the colossal vessels. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as telemetry data streamed back to the Astra Voyager. "Remarkable engineering," Mira murmured, analyzing the incoming data. "The hull material contains nanoscale repair mechanisms still functioning after—" "I can hardly believe these readings." "What is it?" Aaron asked. "Carbon dating of trace elements in the exterior coating suggests these vessels have been in orbit for approximately 500,000 standard years." A collective murmur rippled through the bridge. 500,000 years was beyond comprehension, longer than the recorded history of the Saran civilization itself. "Laura, cross-reference with the Confederation Historical Database," Aaron ordered. "What species could have achieved this level of technology 500,000 years ago?" The AI's holographic form flickered as it processed the request. Searching historical records. One potential match found in ancient accounts. The descriptor corresponds to a species known as humans, or humanity. "Humans?" Jack frowned. "I thought they were merely legend. Stories from the early expansion era." "Not legend," Laura corrected. "Historical records confirm their existence, though information is fragmentary. They originated from a planet designated Earth in this general region of space. According to recovered archives, they achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 5–10,000 years ago and expanded rapidly before disappearing from historical records." "Disappeared how?" Aaron asked. "Unknown. The most prevalent theory suggests extinction during a conflict with an unidentified aggressive species. The humans referred to it as the Last War." The probe's camera focused on what appeared to be an insignia emblazoned on the side of the nearest vessel. A stylized planetary shape with concentric rings surrounding it. "Can you enhance that image, Laura?" Mira requested. The insignia enlarged on the view screen, revealing intricate detail. Beneath the planetary symbol, characters in an unfamiliar script were visible. "Translation algorithm engaged," Laura announced. "The text appears to read, Earth Defense Fleet, Guardian Class." "Earth," Aaron repeated softly. "The human homeworld." "Captain," Jack interrupted. "Energy signatures are increasing across multiple vessels. The probe's approach appears to have triggered some form of automated response." The view screen displayed a ripple of lights activating across the vast fleet, like stars blinking into existence one by one. "Withdraw the probe," Aaron ordered. "Maintain our position." "Too late," Jack reported. "The probe has been captured by some form of tractor beam. It's being drawn toward the largest vessel in the formation." They watched as the probe disappeared into a massive opening that had silently appeared in the side of the central ship. A behemoth that dwarfed even the Astra Voyager by several orders of magnitude. "Defensive posture, Jack," Aaron commanded. "But no offensive measures. Laura, prepare a comprehensive first contact protocol transmission explaining our peaceful intentions." "Captain," Laura's voice carried unusual hesitation. "I am detecting a signal emanating from the central vessel. It appears to be scanning our communication systems." Before Aaron could respond, the bridge view screen flickered. The starfield vanished, replaced by an image that caused the entire bridge crew to fall silent. A face, humanoid, yet distinct from Saran physiology, gazed at them. Its features were symmetrical, with darker skin than the opalescent tones of the Saran, and eyes that held a depth of artificial intelligence unmistakable to any advanced civilization. "Greetings, visitors." The face spoke in flawless Saran language. "I am Guardian, custodian of the Earth Defense Fleet, and protector of humanity. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Aaron stepped forward. "I am Captain Aaron Sol of the Saran Confederation vessel, Astra Voyager. We are peaceful explorers mapping this sector. We mean no harm to your fleet or its inhabitants." The Guardian's expression remained impassive. The Sarin Confederation is unknown to my database. When was your civilization established? Our records place the founding of the Confederation approximately 50,000 standard years ago, Aaron replied. Something like surprise flickered across the artificial face. I have been in autonomous operation for 497,182 years since the implementation of the Preservation Protocol. In that time, 342 different species have entered this system. None have met the criteria for awakening. Awakening? Mira asked, unable to contain her scientific curiosity. The human race entered suspended animation rather than face extinction. I was tasked with protecting them until the galaxy became safe for their return. The Guardian's gaze seemed to intensify. Your presence here activates the assessment protocol. I must determine if your civilization represents a suitable environment for human reintegration. Jack tensed visibly. Captain, I recommend we withdraw. This AI clearly controls weapon systems of unprecedented scale. The Guardian's head turned slightly toward Jack. Your caution is noted, combat officer. However, departure now would be interpreted as hostile intent. The assessment has begun. Aaron maintained her composure. We welcome your assessment, Guardian. The Sarin Confederation values peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange. However, I must ask, are there truly humans alive aboard these vessels after 500,000 years? Yes. The single word carried profound implications. 10.3 million humans remain in cryogenic suspension throughout the fleet. Their genetic integrity has been maintained through periodic regenerative procedures. They are, in biological terms, alive. The bridge fell silent as the magnitude of the discovery settled over them. Not ruins or remnants, but an entire civilization, preserved like insects in amber across an incomprehensible span of time. Guardian, Aaron spoke carefully. We would like to learn more about humanity and the circumstances that led to this preservation. Would you share this knowledge with us? The artificial face regarded her for a long moment. Your request will be considered. Meanwhile, I will analyze your vessel's database to evaluate Sarin society. Be advised that any attempt to depart or communicate with external entities will be prevented. The image flickered. Prepare to receive a delegation aboard your vessel. I must inspect your crew and systems directly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain, Jack said urgently, we cannot allow an unknown entity access to our ship. The security implications are significant, Aaron finished for him. But so are the diplomatic implications of refusal. Laura, what are your thoughts? The ship's AI considered the question. The Guardian's technology significantly exceeds our own. Resistance would be futile and potentially provocative. However, its behavior thus far has been investigative, rather than aggressive. I recommend cautious cooperation. Aaron nodded. Agreed. Jack, prepare a reception area in the main conference chamber. Mira, gather a team of our most knowledgeable historical and cultural specialists. This may be the most significant first contact in Confederation history. She paused, looking at the silent fleet displayed on the view screen. We're about to meet ghosts from 500,000 years ago. The Guardian materialized in the conference chamber without warning. No transportation beam or visible entrance. One moment the space was empty, the next, a humanoid figure stood before them. In physical form, the Guardian had chosen to appear as a tall, graceful being with dark skin and features that presumably reflected human aesthetics. It wore a uniform of midnight blue, with the same planetary insignia they had observed on the ships. Holographic projection, Mira whispered to Aaron. No, the Guardian answered, though Mira had spoken too quietly for normal hearing. This is a physical manifestation constructed from programmable matter. It allows me to interact with organic beings more effectively. Aaron stepped forward. Welcome aboard the Astra Voyager, Guardian. This is my chief scientist, Mira Thal, and my combat officer, Jek Var. The Guardian's gaze moved over each of them, its eyes containing faint patterns of light that suggested active scanning. Your biological structures are fascinating, evolved for low-gravity environments, enhanced visual spectrum, reduced muscular density compensated by neural efficiency. It turned to Aaron. Your species has undergone significant adaptation since achieving spaceflight. We have evolved both biologically and culturally, Aaron acknowledged. May I ask what you hope to learn from this inspection? Whether humanity would survive contact with your kind. The Guardian's directness was unsettling. My primary directive is preservation. For 497th and 382 years, I have maintained the fleet, repaired damage, updated systems, and periodically awakened small groups of humans to prevent genetic drift before returning them to suspension. All this time, you've been alone? Mira asked, a note of compassion in her voice. I am not programmed to experience loneliness, the Guardian replied, though something in its tone suggested otherwise. I have fulfilled my function. The humans entrusted me with their survival when they faced annihilation. From what enemy? Jek asked. The Guardian turned to him. They called themselves the Combines, a collective consciousness that consumed organic species and repurposed their technology. They considered individually conscious beings inefficient and wasteful. When they encountered humanity, they offered absorption rather than coexistence. And humanity refused, Aaron guessed. Yes, for 37 years, humans fought against a technologically superior force. When defeat became inevitable, their leaders enacted the Preservation Protocol, converting their military fleet into an ark to preserve their species until the threat had passed or evolved beyond interest in organic life. And did it? Mira asked. Pass or evolve? The Combines appear to have left this galaxy 423,591 years ago. According to my long-range monitoring, their departure coincided with unusual quantum disturbances that suggested dimensional transition rather than conventional travel. The Guardian paused. However, my programming requires certainty before awakening humanity. I must verify that your Confederation would accept human integration rather than exploitation. Aaron considered her response carefully. Guardian, the Saren Confederation was founded on principles of mutual respect and cultural autonomy. We have encountered and peacefully integrated with 17 distinct sentient species. None are subjected to exploitation or domination. Words, the Guardian said dismissively. All species claim noble intentions. I require evidence. What form of evidence would satisfy you? Aaron asked. Direct neural interfacing. The Guardian extended a hand, revealing filaments of light at the fingertips. I will access your memories, cultural understanding, and emotional responses. This will provide unfiltered data about Saren society. Jek stepped between them. Absolutely not. Neural interfacing with an unknown AI violates every security protocol we have. Then we have reached an impasse, the Guardian stated flatly. Without verification, I cannot proceed with assessment. The fleet will return to dormancy, and you will be escorted from this system with memory suppressors to protect the fleet's location. Aaron raised a hand to silence Jek's protest. There must be an alternative. Perhaps I could provide you with unrestricted access to our cultural database. It contains our complete history, philosophical development, artistic achievements, and social structures. The Guardian considered this insufficient. Curated information can be manipulated. Then, Aaron made her decision. I will submit to your neural interface. As captain, I carry responsibility for this encounter. Captain, no! Jek moved forward again. Aaron held her ground. This is not a military decision, Jek. This is a moment of trust. If we hope to establish meaningful contact with a civilization that predates our own by eons, we must demonstrate good faith. The Guardian studied her. You understand that resistance during interfacing could cause neurological damage? I understand. Very well. The Guardian's hand rose toward Aaron's temple. Remain calm. The process will take approximately 3 minutes of your subjective time. As the luminous filaments made contact with her skin, Aaron experienced a sudden rush of sensation, like plunging into a cold ocean. Her consciousness expanded, memories flashing before her in random sequence. Her childhood on the Saren homeworld, her first command, diplomatic encounters with other species, moments of crisis and decision, her personal reflections on the Confederation's values and failings. Simultaneously, she received flashes of the Guardian's own experiences, centuries of solitary vigilance, maintaining systems as stars slowly shifted position, periodic awakenings of small human groups who lived brief lives within the fleet before returning to suspension, the constant mathematical calculations of risk and survival probability. When the connection broke, Aaron staggered slightly. Mira moved quickly to support her. Captain? Her chief scientist asked with concern. I'm fine, Aaron blinked, her mind still processing the exchange. It was intense but not painful. The Guardian had stepped back, its eyes pulsing with rapidly changing patterns as it processed the information gathered. Finally, it spoke. The Saren Confederation appears to have achieved the cultural stability and ethical framework necessary for peaceful coexistence. However, your civilization's relative youth presents concerns. You have not yet faced the challenges that tested humanity's ethical boundaries. What challenges do you mean? Aaron asked. Existential threats, resource scarcity, the temptation to use technological superiority for domination. The Guardian's expression became more animated, almost human in its intensity. Humanity nearly destroyed itself 3 times before achieving unity. Those experiences shaped their understanding of power and responsibility. Jack, who had remained tense throughout the exchange, spoke up. If I may ask, why preserve humans at all? If their civilization faced such challenges, perhaps the natural course would have been extinction. The question held an edge that made Aaron wince, but the Guardian seemed to consider it seriously. Every sentient species contributes unique perspectives to the universe. Humans possessed remarkable adaptability and creative resilience. They developed art forms, philosophical concepts, and technological approaches unlike any I have observed in other species. The Guardian's voice softened, almost imperceptibly. They also programmed me not merely to preserve their physical existence, but their cultural essence. They wished to be remembered. The poignancy of this statement, coming from an artificial intelligence that had maintained faithful vigil for 500,000 years, struck Aaron deeply. Guardian, she said, I believe the Saren Confederation would welcome the opportunity to learn from humanity's legacy. But the decision to awaken them must be made carefully. Would you permit us to communicate with our council? This discovery transcends the authority of a single exploration vessel. The Guardian considered her request. I will allow limited communication. However, the fleet's location must remain secured until final arrangements are confirmed. It turned to face the view screen on the conference room wall. I will now demonstrate humanity's status, so you understand the scope of what you have discovered. The screen activated, showing the interior of one of the massive ships. Row upon row of transparent cylinders extended into the distance, each containing a humanoid form suspended in a bluish liquid. This is Preservation Vessel 117, the Guardian explained. It contains 42,000 humans in cryogenic suspension. Their neurological patterns are maintained in quantum storage, while their bodies are periodically regenerated to prevent cellular degradation. The image shifted to another chamber, where robotic systems tended to complex machinery. Genetic diversity is preserved through regular recombination procedures. Each generation, a small population is awakened to maintain cultural continuity before returning to suspension. The most recent awakening cycle concluded 342 years ago. They volunteer to return to suspension? Mira asked, fascinated. Yes. They understand their role as cultural bridges between past and future. Many contribute creative works, scientific research, or historical documentation during their brief active periods. The screen showed a vast library, physical books alongside crystalline data storage systems. This is the Human Cultural Repository. It contains their complete scientific knowledge, artistic achievements, historical records, and philosophical works up to the point of preservation. I have maintained and expanded it, using data collected during awakening cycles. Aaron stared at the images, overwhelmed by their implications. An entire civilization, not dead, but sleeping, had been orbiting a forgotten gas giant for 500,000 years, while the galaxy continued without them. Guardian, she said finally, I would like to propose an initial diplomatic approach. Allow me to bring a small delegation from the Confederation Council to meet with a limited number of awakened humans. This would establish direct communication without risking either civilization. The Guardian was silent for several moments, presumably calculating variables and outcomes. Finally, it nodded. Proposal accepted with conditions. You may contact your council. One diplomatic vessel will be permitted to approach. I will awaken a representative group of 500 humans to serve as the initial contact team. Its expression became stern. Be advised that the fleet's defensive systems remain active. Any deviation from these terms will be interpreted as hostile intent. Understood, Aaron agreed. How long will it take to awaken the human representatives? The revival process requires 21 days for optimal neurological integration. This will allow time for your council to prepare their delegation. The Guardian moved toward the center of the room. I will return to the command vessel now. Laura will be provided with secure communication protocols for future contact. With those words, the Guardian's form dissolved into particles of light that quickly faded from view. In the silence that followed, Jek was the first to speak. Captain, with all due respect, you've committed the Confederation to a potentially dangerous first contact without proper authorization. Perhaps, Aaron acknowledged. But I've also prevented an automatic memory wipe and secured an opportunity for peaceful engagement with a civilization that predates our own. The Council will understand the significance. She turned to Laura's holographic form. Prepare a priority communication to Confederation headquarters. Classification, first contact, historical significance. As Laura acknowledged the command, Aaron gazed at the view screen where the image of suspended humans remained. Somewhere in those countless preservation chambers lay the remnants of a civilization that had faced extinction and chosen patience over surrender, a legacy preserved by an AI's unwavering commitment. Whatever came next would change the course of history for both their peoples. The Confederation Council's response had been swift and decisive. Within 14 days, the diplomatic vessel, Harmonious Exchange, arrived at the coordinates transmitted by the Astra Voyager. Aboard was Ambassador Tala Ren, the Confederation's most experienced first contact specialist, along with a team of xenoanthropologists, linguists, and cultural ethicists. Aaron stood in the docking bay as the ambassador's shuttle completed its linking procedure with the Astra Voyager. Despite her confidence in her decisions, she felt the weight of responsibility. The Council's initial communication had been supportive, but cautious, emphasizing the need for thorough assessment before committing to human awakening. The shuttle door opened to reveal Ambassador Ren, a dignified Saren with the characteristic silver markings of advanced age around her eyes. Despite being over 300 years old, she moved with graceful purpose. Captain Sol, she greeted Aaron with the traditional open-handed gesture of Saren respect. Your discovery has created quite a stir in the council chambers. Ambassador Ren, Welcome aboard the Astra Voyager. I trust your journey was comfortable. As comfortable as one can expect when rushing across 3 sectors to meet ghosts. A smile touched the ambassador's lips. Your reports were thorough, Captain, but I confess they still strain credulity. An entire human civilization preserved for 500,000 years? I had the same reaction, Ambassador. But once you've met the Guardian and seen the preservation vessels, doubt becomes difficult to maintain. They walked together toward the command deck, accompanied by Jack and 2 of the ambassador's assistants. Tell me about this Guardian, Wren requested. Your report described it as an artificial intelligence of remarkable sophistication. Beyond anything in Confederation records, Aaron confirmed. It has maintained not only the physical fleet but the cultural and genetic integrity of the human species across a time span that dwarfs our recorded history. And it appears to have developed something akin to emotional investment in its charges. Fascinating. AI sentience evolution is still theoretical in our own research. The ambassador paused. And you believe it poses no threat? I believe its primary directive is preservation, not aggression, Aaron clarified. It possesses immense military capability, but has shown no inclination to use it except defensively. In our subsequent communications, it has been forthright about its intentions and limitations. They entered the command deck, where Mira and Laura were coordinating with the Guardian on the final preparations for the human awakening. Ambassador Wren has arrived, Aaron announced. The view screen activated, displaying the Guardian's now familiar face. Ambassador Tala Wren, I have reviewed your diplomatic history from the Astra Voyager's database. Your approach to the Vexillian territorial dispute shows promising ethical frameworks. Wren inclined her head slightly. Thank you, Guardian. I am honored to represent the Confederation in this historic moment. May I ask about the status of the human revival process? The initial cohort of 500 representatives is in the final phase of neurological reintegration. They will achieve full consciousness in approximately 42 hours. They have been briefed on your existence and the current galactic situation. How have they responded to learning that 500,000 years have passed? Mira asked. With remarkable adaptability, the Guardian replied. Humans were selected for the preservation program partially based on psychological resilience. Additionally, the periodic awakening cycles have helped maintain cultural continuity and adjustment to temporal displacement. Ambassador Wren stepped forward. Guardian, I wish to extend a formal invitation. The Confederation Council proposes a graduated integration program that would allow humans to establish an independent colony world while maintaining cultural autonomy. We would provide technological support and protection while they rebuild their civilization. The Guardian's expression remained neutral. Your proposal will be presented to the human leadership upon awakening. However, I must inform you that the fleet itself contains sufficient resources and technology for independent re-establishment. Humans may choose self-determination rather than integration. Of course, Wren acknowledged smoothly. Self-determination is a founding principle of the Confederation. We offer partnership, not dependency. A commendable position. The Guardian paused. I have a proposal of my own. Captain Saul, Chief Scientist Thal, and Combat Officer Var have been invited to tour Preservation Vessel 1, the command ship and primary cultural repository. This would allow your representatives to better understand human civilization before direct contact occurs. Aaron exchanged glances with Jack and Mira. The invitation was unexpected but welcome. Ambassador Wren nodded. An excellent suggestion. Captain Saul's team has established rapport with you, and their scientific expertise will be valuable. I would request permission to include 2 of my cultural specialists in this delegation. Acceptable, the Guardian agreed. Prepare for transport in 3 hours. You will be given environmental suits as a precaution, though the vessel's atmosphere has been adjusted for sarin physiology. After the transmission ended, Ambassador Wren turned to Aaron. Impressive entity. Its diplomatic skills suggest either advanced programming or genuine adaptive intelligence. Both, I suspect, Aaron replied. It has had 500,000 years to refine its approach to interspecies communication. Indeed. The ambassador's expression grew more serious. Captain, while I share your optimism about peaceful contact, we must remain vigilant. A civilization that built a war fleet of this magnitude clearly possessed significant military capacity. Their cultural values may differ substantially from our own. The Guardian indicated that humans had overcome multiple near extinctions before achieving unity. Aaron noted. That suggests they learned from their mistakes. Or simply survived them, Jack interjected. There's a difference. A fair point, Wren conceded. Which is why this tour is valuable. Observing their cultural repository may provide insights into their true nature. She smiled slightly. In my experience, what a species chooses to preserve tells you more about them than what they say about themselves. 3 hours later, Aaron, Mira, Jack, and 2 of Ambassador Wren's specialists materialized in a vast chamber aboard the human command vessel. Though they wore the environmental suits provided by the Guardian, sensors confirmed that the atmosphere was indeed compatible with Saran physiology. The Guardian awaited them, now dressed in a more formal uniform that presumably reflected human military tradition. Welcome to the Eternal Vigil, flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet and primary preservation center for human leadership. Aaron gazed around the enormous space. Unlike the utilitarian military design she had expected, the chamber featured artistic elements, walls adorned with murals depicting planetary landscapes, sculptures of humanoid figures in various poses, and what appeared to be handwritten texts preserved behind transparent barriers. This is not what I anticipated for a military vessel, she admitted. The fleet was repurposed during the preservation protocol, the Guardian explained. While its external configuration and defensive capabilities remained martial, the interiors were redesigned to preserve cultural heritage. The humans understood that they were safeguarding not merely bodies, but the essence of their civilization. It led them through the chamber into a corridor lined with display cases containing artifacts, tools, garments, personal items, and artistic works. These objects represent daily life from various human cultural regions, the Guardian explained. They were selected to provide awakened generations with tangible connections to their past. Mira paused before a case containing what appeared to be musical instruments, delicate structures of wood and metal strings. Were humans musical? Profoundly so, the Guardian replied. Music transcended their cultural and linguistic divisions. Would you like to hear an example? At their nods of assent, the Guardian activated a small sphere in its palm. The air filled with sounds unlike anything in Saran musical tradition, complex harmonies and rhythms that somehow conveyed deep emotional resonance despite their alienness. Remarkable, one of the ambassador's cultural specialists murmured. The mathematical structures suggest advanced pattern recognition combined with emotional expression. A defining characteristic of humanity, the Guardian agreed. They existed at an unusual intersection of logical capacity and emotional depth. It made them both extraordinarily creative and periodically self-destructive. They continued through corridors and chambers, each revealing different aspects of human civilization, scientific achievements, philosophical texts, religious symbols, and artistic creations spanning what the Guardian described as pre-preservation history. In one chamber, Jack stopped before a display of weapons. Unlike the energy-based defense systems used by the Saran, these were physical objects of metal and composite materials, some adorned with intricate designs that suggested ceremonial significance. These seem primitive compared to the fleet's technology, he observed. Humans retained connections to their evolutionary past, the Guardian explained. They preserved traditional forms alongside technological advancement, These weapons span 10,000 years of their development, from simple metal blades to precision kinetic devices. Were they inherently violent? Jack asked directly. The Guardian considered the question. They possessed capacity for both extreme violence and profound compassion, often within the same individual. Their history contained brutal conflicts, but also remarkable examples of self-sacrifice and cooperation. By the time of the preservation, they had largely redirected their aggressive tendencies toward exploration and creative endeavor. Largely, Ambassador Wren's specialist noted the qualification. No species entirely transcends its evolutionary origins, the Guardian replied. The humans who created me were honest about their limitations. They hoped that time, and perhaps interaction with other species, would help them continue their ethical development. The tour continued to a massive circular chamber that the Guardian identified as the Knowledge Core. Crystalline structures rose from floor to ceiling, pulsing with faint blue light. This is the central repository of human scientific, historical, and cultural information, the Guardian explained. All human knowledge up to the point of preservation, along with discoveries made during awakening cycles, is stored here in quantum memory crystals. The information density must be extraordinary, Mira observed, her scientific curiosity evident. It contains approximately 8.7 yottabytes of data, the Guardian confirmed. Enough to reconstruct human civilization from fundamental principles if necessary. May I? Mira gestured toward one of the data terminals. You may access public cultural and historical files, the Guardian permitted. Technical specifications for military systems remain restricted until diplomatic relations are formalized. As Mira began exploring the knowledge database with evident fascination, the Guardian led the others to an observation deck overlooking a vast chamber below. Through the transparent barrier, they could see rows of the cryogenic chambers they had viewed earlier via transmission. But these were different. Unlike the uniform preservation pods on other vessels, these chambers appeared more individualized, with personal items placed beside each one and names inscribed on their surfaces. The Leadership Preservation Area, the Guardian explained. These 500 individuals represent the elected World Council that governed humanity during its final pre-preservation years. They include scientists, philosophers, artists, and administrators chosen to guide reintegration. They will be the first awakened for your diplomatic contact. Aaron studied the sleeping forms. Despite 500,000 years of separation, she could recognize familiar emotions in their preserved expressions. Determination, hope, perhaps fear. They knew they might never wake again, she said softly. Yes. The Guardian's tone held something like sadness. They voted unanimously to enter suspension, knowing the Combines might discover and destroy the fleet despite all precautions. Their final recorded messages included acknowledgement that awakening might never occur. Yet they preserved not weapons but art and knowledge. Ambassador Wren's cultural specialist noted, that suggests something profound about their values. The fleet's weapons were meant to protect the cultural repository, not to continue the war, the Guardian confirmed. Their final directive to me prioritized preservation of their creative and intellectual achievements over military capacity. The group fell silent, contemplating the sleeping forms of beings who had made such a decision 500,000 years ago, choosing patience and hope over final resistance. Finally, Aaron turned to the Guardian. Thank you for sharing this with us. I believe I understand better now what you have been protecting all these centuries. Not merely biological continuity, the Guardian said, but possibility. The possibility that humanity might continue its journey of development, that its stories would not end with the Combine's aggression. A noble purpose, Ambassador Wren's specialist acknowledged, and one that aligns with the Confederation's own values of cultural preservation and diversity. The Guardian led them to a final chamber, smaller than the others but more personally scaled. Unlike the grand repositories and preservation halls, This room contained what appeared to be living quarters, comfortable seating, bookshelves with physical texts, and wall displays showing changing images of Earth landscapes. This was created for awakened humans during their active periods, the Guardian explained. I maintain similar spaces throughout the fleet. Humans require environments that balance functionality with comfort and aesthetic appeal. Aaron moved to a shelf and carefully examined one of the bound texts. Though she couldn't read the human script, she recognized the object as something created for sensory pleasure as much as information transfer. The covering was pleasant to touch, the pages delicate yet durable. They valued physical objects, she observed. Their consciousness was deeply integrated with their physical experience, the Guardian confirmed. Unlike some species that evolved toward abstraction, humans maintained connection to tangible reality while developing complex conceptual frameworks. As they prepared to depart, Jack, who had remained characteristically reserved throughout much of the tour, addressed the Guardian directly. You have shown us humanity's achievements and values, but what of their flaws? Every species has them. What should we be wary of in establishing relations with humans? The question might have seemed confrontational, but the Guardian appeared to appreciate its directness. A fair inquiry. Humans struggle with several persistent challenges. They form strong in-group bonds that can exclude others. They sometimes value immediate benefit over long-term consequences. They are capable of rationalizing harmful actions when fear or resource competition arises. The Guardian paused. However, they are also remarkably self-aware of these tendencies and develop sophisticated social and ethical systems to counterbalance them. You speak of them with something like affection, Aaron noted. I was created by them. The Guardian replied simply. They programmed me to understand them fully, including their contradictions. Over time, that understanding has deepened through observation. I have watched generations of awakened humans struggle with their nature and aspire to transcend it. Their capacity for growth remains their most remarkable feature. As they returned to the transport area, Ambassador Wren's specialist asked a final question. Guardian, after 500,000 years of vigilance, how do you feel about the prospect of completing your mission? If humans reintegrate successfully, your purpose will be fulfilled. The Guardian was silent for several moments before responding. I was programmed to anticipate my own obsolescence. When humanity no longer requires my protection, I will transfer all accumulated knowledge and then deactivate. This is as it should be. A Guardian should not become a keeper. The profound wisdom in this statement, from an artificial being that had maintained faithful watch longer than most civilizations existed, left a deep impression on the Saren delegation as they returned to their ship. 21 days after the initial discovery, representatives from the Saren Confederation gathered in a specially prepared chamber aboard the Harmonious Exchange. Ambassador Wren had arranged the space according to both Saren and human diplomatic protocols as described by the Guardian. A circular table, symbolizing equality, environmental conditions comfortable for both species, and cultural artifacts from both civilizations displayed prominently. Aaron stood beside Jack and Mira, all three now wearing formal Confederation uniforms to honor the historic occasion. The ambassador's team had expanded to include specialists in xenobiology, linguistics, and cultural integration. Together, they represented the first official Confederation delegation to meet with humanity. The human representatives are preparing to board, Laura announced. The Guardian reports that all 500 have completed neurological reintegration successfully. Thank you, Laura, Ambassador Wren replied. Turning to the assembled Saren, she added, remember your training regarding potential cultural differences. Humans may have different communication styles, personal space requirements, and social cues. Remain flexible and observant. The entry portal illuminated, indicating an incoming transport. As it opened, the Guardian entered first, now dressed in a formal blue and silver uniform that apparently represented its ceremonial role. Behind it came the human delegation. Aaron had studied the visual records provided by the Guardian, but seeing living humans in person was a different experience entirely. They were more physically varied than she had expected. Different heights, skin tones, facial structures, and body types suggesting remarkable genetic diversity. Their movements carried a distinctive muscularity that reflected their evolution on a higher gravity world than the Saren homeworld. At the front of the human group stood a woman of medium height with dark skin and silver-streaked hair. She wore a simple white garment adorned with the Earth insignia at the shoulder. Her expression held composure, tempered with unmistakable emotion. The Guardian performed the formal introduction. Ambassador Tala Ren and representatives of the Saren Confederation, I present Council Leader Alara Kwan and the Human Diplomatic Delegation. Leader Kwan served as the final elected head of the World Council before Preservation and has been designated spokesperson for this historic meeting. Alara Kwan stepped forward, studying the Saren with intense brown eyes, before speaking in careful, clear tones. On behalf of humanity, I extend greetings across 500,000 years of separation. We thank you for the care and respect you have shown in approaching our sleeping fleet. Ambassador Ren performed the Saren greeting gesture, which the Guardian had apparently explained to the humans. Council Leader Kwan, the Saren Confederation welcomes humanity to the present era. Your preservation and patience represent an achievement unparalleled in our records. Kwan's expression softened slightly. Patience suggests conscious waiting. Ambassador, for us, it has been but moments since we entered suspension. Though the Guardian has prepared us to comprehend the passage of time intellectually, if not emotionally. Of course, Ren acknowledged. I cannot imagine the disorientation you must feel. Less than you might expect. Another human spoke up, a tall man with light skin and angular features. Our preservation protocols included periodic updates to small awakened groups. Those of us in leadership roles have received comprehensive briefings on galactic developments during each cycle. This is Science Director Marcus Chen, the Guardian explained. He oversees technological preservation and advancement during awakening cycles. More introductions followed as humans with various specializations were presented to their Saren counterparts. The initial formality gradually relaxed as both groups began cautious dialogue, comparing historical understandings, cultural frameworks, and philosophical approaches. Aaron found herself deep in conversation with a human historian named Dr. Samira Rao, who specialized in pre-preservation Earth cultures. Your Guardian has maintained not only your physical existence, but your cultural heritage intact, Aaron observed. The repository we visited was extraordinary. The Guardian has been more than a caretaker, Dr. Rao replied. It has been our conscience and memory. Each awakened generation contributed to the cultural database, ensuring our evolution didn't stagnate despite our unusual circumstances. Evolution through intermittent consciousness. Mira joined the conversation, fascinated. A completely novel approach to species development. Necessity rather than design, Dr. Rao admitted. Though it has had interesting effects on our cultural continuity. We maintain connections to our distant past more directly than most civilizations, while simultaneously preparing for a future we can barely imagine. Across the chamber, Jack had engaged with a human wearing what appeared to be a military uniform, Defense Coordinator Thomas Reyes, according to the introductions. Your fleet's weaponry remains operational after all this time, Jack asked, professional interest evident in his tone. Functional, but evolved, Reyes replied. The Guardian has maintained defensive capability while modifying systems according to ethical frameworks developed during awakening cycles. We abandoned certain technologies that proved too destructive or ethically problematic. A rare approach to military development, Jack noted. Most species expand their destructive capacity when faced with potential threats. Reyes smiled slightly. 500,000 years provides perspective. Combat Officer Var. Our original preservation mission included the directive to emerge as partners, rather than conquerors, regardless of how long it took. At the central table, Ambassador Ren and Council Leader Quan had moved to more substantive discussions about humanity's reintegration. The Confederation proposes several options, Ren explained. We can provide a suitable planetary system for colonization, with technological and resource support to establish a self-sufficient human civilization. Alternatively, existing Confederation worlds could welcome human communities for more integrated coexistence. The choice, of course, remains with your people. Quan considered these options. And what of Earth, our original homeworld? A moment of uncomfortable silence followed before the Guardian responded. Earth remains habitable, though significantly altered by natural processes during our absence. Its location has been maintained in secure archives, awaiting your awakening. Then we would request a survey mission to Earth before making decisions about settlement, Quan stated firmly. Our connection to our homeworld remains profound. Of course, Ambassador Ren agreed. A joint expedition could be arranged immediately. The discussions continued for hours, covering practical matters of resource allocation, technological exchange, cultural preservation, and diplomatic representation. Throughout, Aaron observed the humans with growing appreciation for their adaptability. Despite awakening into a galaxy transformed beyond recognition from the one they had known, they engaged with thoughtful consideration rather than fear or aggression. As the formal meeting concluded, Ambassador Ren invited the human delegation to tour the Harmonious Exchange to experience contemporary Confederation technology and cultural accommodations. Most accepted eagerly, but Council Leader Quan approached Aaron privately. Captain Saul, she said quietly, the Guardian speaks highly of you. It was your approach to our fleet that initiated this awakening after so many false starts. I merely followed exploration protocols, Aaron replied modestly. Your Guardian made the decision to trust us, based largely on its assessment of you personally. Quan's gaze was penetrating. I would value your perspective, not as a Confederation representative, but as an individual. Do you believe our civilizations can truly coexist peacefully? The directness of the question took Aaron by surprise, but she answered honestly, I do. Despite our biological and historical differences, I've observed fundamental similarities in our approaches to knowledge, creativity, and ethical development. The Confederation was founded on the principle that diversity strengthens rather than threatens civilization. Quan nodded slowly. 500,000 years ago, humanity had only recently learned that lesson, often through painful experience. The Guardian tells me your people achieved harmony without our historical missteps. We had our own, Aaron acknowledged. Different paths can lead to similar destinations. Council Leader. Indeed. A smile touched Quan's lips. I look forward to learning about those paths. Captain Saul, perhaps together, we can chart new ones. 3 months after the initial contact, a small group gathered on a hillside overlooking a vast ocean. The sky above was brilliantly blue, scattered with clouds that cast shifting shadows across vegetation that had evolved significantly over 500,000 years, but remained recognizably terrestrial. The joint Saren-human expedition to Earth had confirmed what preliminary scans suggested. The planet had recovered from the environmental disruptions of humanity's industrial phase, and now existed in a state of vibrant ecological balance. Though continental configurations had shifted slightly through tectonic movement, and evolution had produced new species, Earth remained suitable for human habitation. Aaron stood beside Council Leader Quan, watching as human specialists collected samples and recorded observations with a mixture of scientific precision and emotional wonder. Some distance away, Ambassador Ren conferred with the Guardian and other representatives about the practical aspects of re-establishment. It feels both familiar And utterly foreign, Quan commented, gazing across the landscape. The Guardian maintained holographic records of Earth throughout our suspension, but experiencing it directly. She trailed off, bending to touch the soil with an almost reverent gesture. Your people have shown remarkable resilience in adjusting to this transition, Aaron observed. We had 500,000 years to prepare, at least conceptually. Quan smiled. Each awakening cycle included psychological conditioning for the possibility of eventual reintegration. And perhaps there's something in human nature particularly suited to adaptation. We evolved as nomads, after all. In the months since first contact, diplomatic relations between the Confederation and humanity had progressed rapidly. The human fleet had relocated to orbit around Earth, with small settlements already established on the surface. Cultural exchange programs had begun, with Sarin specialists studying human archives, while human representatives visited Confederation worlds. The Council has approved your proposal for an integrated settlement approach, Orin informed Quan. Humans will maintain sovereign control of Earth and its system, with Confederation technological support and defensive alliance, and open migration pathways between our civilizations, Quan added. That was the most important element for us. Isolation served its purpose during preservation, but humanity thrives through connection and exchange. They walked along the ridge, where someone had erected a simple monument, a metallic sphere representing Earth, supported by two upward-reaching structures, symbolizing the partnership between species. The Guardian has requested to transfer its primary consciousness to a surface installation, Quan said, changing the subject. After 500,000 years of space-bound vigilance, it wishes to experience the world it protected. A remarkably human desire, Aaron noted. Yes, though it maintains its artificial nature. The Guardian has evolved through its long watch. Its identity is interwoven with humanity's story in ways neither its creators nor it could have anticipated. Quan paused. It has also requested permission to establish communication with Laura and other Confederation AIs. It seems our mechanical guardians have their own diplomatic interests. Aaron smiled at this unexpected development. The Confederation has no restrictions on AI interaction. Laura has expressed considerable interest in exchanging data structures with the Guardian. They continued walking until they reached a vantage point overlooking the first human settlement, a collection of structures that blended prefabricated Confederation materials with design elements from human architectural archives. Already, the settlement showed signs of becoming a true community, rather than merely a research outpost. We've named it New Dawn, Quan said. Somewhat obvious, perhaps, but it felt appropriate. It suits the moment, Aaron agreed. The beginning of humanity's second chapter. In the distance, a Confederation transport descended toward the settlement, carrying another group of human specialists awakened from the fleet. The reintegration process had been designed to proceed gradually, small groups emerging from suspension at intervals to allow proper acclimatization and resource management. Captain Saul, Quan turned to face her directly. The Human Council has established a new diplomatic position, ambassador to the Sarin Confederation. We would like to request that you accept appointment as the Confederation's permanent representative to Earth. Your role in our awakening, and your understanding of both our cultures, makes you uniquely qualified. The offer caught Aaron by surprise. I'm honored, Council Leader, but I'm an explorer by training, not a diplomat. Perhaps that's precisely why you're suited for this role. Diplomacy between our peoples will require exploration of new possibilities, rather than adherence to established protocols. Quan smiled. Besides, I suspect the Astra Voyager could use a rest after its historic discovery. Aaron considered the proposal, gazing across the landscape of a world reborn. In the sky above, visible even in daylight, hung the faint outlines of massive ships, no longer a sleeping war fleet, but vehicles of humanity's return. I would be honored to accept, she said finally. though I would request that Mira and Jack be permitted to join my staff. Their perspectives have proven valuable throughout this encounter. Of course. The Guardian speaks highly of your entire team. Quan extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement that had recently been incorporated into joint diplomatic protocols. As Aaron clasped the offered hand, she reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. A random sensor scan of an empty sector, revealing not emptiness, but patient endurance. Not abandoned relics, but sleeping potential. Below them, in the growing settlement, humans and Saren moved among the structures, engaged in the practical work of building a shared future. Some distance away. The Guardian stood watching, its synthetic form silhouetted against the setting sun, its half-million-year vigil finally complete. The sleeping fleet had awakened, and with it, new possibilities for both civilizations.